Change, randomness, the hidden. I want you guys to think about these concepts for a bit. I think it's fair to say they're kind of scary. But this is exactly what Catmull targets in Creativity Inc. in chapters 8 and 9. Something I love about the book is it's targeted towards creative managers, but there's so many takeaways just for everyday life. So the chapters are pretty detailed and extensive, so I'm going to just pull the highlights and main points that I found in them. A theme that I'm finding is balance, trying to balance that inevitability. So on page 146, Catmull is talking about how people tend to avoid change, shy away from it, avoid it at all costs, and I'm so guilty of this. In high school, my parents were trying to get me to apply for colleges. Write a college essay, send in applications, and I wouldn't do it because I was so scared. I was so scared of the change and the unknown and everything that came with that. But Catmull says there is no growth or success without change. If that's not convicting. So the thing is people tend to stick with what they know. It's worked in the past, so why shouldn't it work now? Catmull has a question for managers who encounter this, saying, how as managers do we differentiate between sticking with the tried and true and reaching for some unknown that might or might not be better? So what do you guys think? How do we find the balance between what has worked in the past and what could possibly work better? It's a risk to take for sure, but like we learned last week, we're not supposed to fear failure, and that's going to be a part of this. So Catmull suggests that we eliminate fear and add so much self-awareness to this equation. The issue with fear is people tend to reach for what they know, what they deem as stable or certain. So what is it that people are fearing in change? On page 152, he says it's discomfort, it's confusion, it's the possibility of extra work, stress, showing signs of weakness, which I think are fair things to be concerned about. But Catmull says a person who can't change his or her mind is dangerous. Why do you guys think that is? An example he uses is Hollywood. He's like, the people out there, we know the people involved there, that it's a flawed system. It doesn't work great. It's self-interest. People are abused. But the thing is they know how to work the system. So why would they change a system into something they would need to relearn if they already know that one? But Catmull ends the section saying self-interest guides opposition to change, but lack of self-awareness fuels it even more. I'll read that one more time. Self-interest guides opposition to change, but lack of self-awareness fuels it even more. So have you guys seen this in your life, in your workplace, maybe in some of your relationships? So moving on to randomness. On page 155, Catmull defines randomness as it comes out of nowhere and can't be anticipated. So I find that wildly unnerving. I literally think of a car accident. Now I know that's a drastic example, but it's, out of nowhere and can't be anticipated. But random events can be good or bad. So some terms that Catmull adds to this are coincidence and luck. Now I want to talk about integrate a biblical worldview here for a bit, because as Christians, we're not going to believe in coincidence and luck. But I think God's plan, when it is laid out there before us, can seem so surprising and unexpected, so it can seem kind of random. So I think we can still, apply some of this advice that he has for us. So how do we deal with random events when they appear? On page 156, Catmull says, when a bad thing happens, people will draw conclusions that might include conspiracy or forces acting against them. Or conversely, if a good thing happens, they are brilliant and deserving. So for those of you who have taken comm theory, this fits perfectly with attribution theory. So I went to my conflict text to define that. Attribution theory states that people act as they do act as they do because of inferences they make about the others based on their behavior. So essentially what that's saying is, I am trying to decide why you are doing what you're doing, and that's how I then choose my behavior. The attribution error is when I do something wrong, but I believe it's because of external things I couldn't control that forced me to do that. But if I do something great, it's internal influence because I'm so amazing, I'm so smart, I'm so talented, and that's where the error comes in. Now, when I attribute that to somebody else, it flips. So if this is human nature, what we just do naturally, as managers, how do we balance that? How do we know that we do that and use it maybe for good or disregard it? What do you guys think? Catmull says be careful of oversimplification. So there are so many factors influencing the things that happen that we could never even possibly know what they all are. So essentially, don't get cocky when things are going great, but don't lose your head when things are going not so great. The example they use in the book is when all of the data for Toy Story 2 was deleted. One person input the wrong command and it was all gone. But after it was all said and done, nobody was fired. And when people were surprised by this, Catmull responded saying, "Our people have good intentions. To think you can control or prevent random problems by making an example of someone is naive and wrong-headed. Moreover, if you say it is important to let the people you work with solve their own problems, then you must behave like you mean it. Always, always walk your talk." The idea here is enable people. Enable employees to solve the problems, big or small, because small problems are just big problems in the making. So if we can empower people to feel as though they can solve the problems they encounter, we'll have a much more successful team to work with, less problems to deal with, and more of an ability to deal with that randomness. So moving on to the hidden. This refers to the information that a higher up, a boss, a manager, the information that they don't know. When I was I was interning at a Christian nonprofit in DC, and I saw this firsthand. The executives tended to give people demanding and unpractical assignments and duties, and it was a little bit of an uncomfortable environment to be in because I knew that almost every employee was actively looking for a new job, something that the executives didn't know. This was hidden from them. And it might have been okay for them to know if they were going to deal with that information positively and productively. On page 169, Catmull says, knowing that this hidden information is inevitable, says if you don't try to uncover what is unseen and understand its nature, you'll be ill-prepared to lead. The context is a manager who doesn't know everything, but thinks they do. So if they don't see problems, well, there are no problems, which is not realistic. Catmull lays out 3 levels of the unknown, of the hidden information. He doesn't name them, so I named them. The first one is the positional. So this is the level where someone is promoted to a higher level of management. People start to treat them differently. They choose what they say more carefully and keep information from them. It doesn't have to be a big issue until that manager believes that they know what's going on. The second level is the hierarchical level. Now, I've talked about hierarchy a lot in class, and hierarchy doesn't have to be a bad thing until the people higher up on that pyramid treat those under them as lesser and devalue them. And secrets and information is held back in both directions. Higher-ups don't deem those under them as worthy of it, and then so the secrets start to fester in the lower levels. The third level of the unknown is involvement. So you have the manager with people under them working on their own day-to-day tasks that they know more about than the manager ever will. But if they don't bring up their problems and they're afraid to talk about that information is hidden and can't be dealt with. So on page 173, Catmull states there is nothing quite as effective when it comes to shutting down alternative viewpoints as being convinced you are right. So make sure that you listen to those people. At the end of the chapter, Catmull gives us a list of the things that they use to combat this hidden information. Things we talked about in class: candor, safety, research, self-assessment, and protecting the new. So what is it that you would add to this list?